Time to take that big idea that's really tiny and find out what kind of impact it's having. What am I talking about today in the MTOM podcast? I'm Paul Yeager. You're about to find out. We're going to revisit with someone that we talked to before about nematodes. We're getting scientific, but we're going to talk about the impact it's having on cornfields, not just in Iowa, but all over. Thousands of acres were put into production with this product, and Keegan Shields is back with us again. And we're going to find out how the year 2025 went with the product. He's going to show us some flyover video, see where, or at least talk about it, and see where the impact was, what happened, where this application is, and another industry that might be just a tiny bit upset at him. We'll let him explain. I'm Paul Yeager. I want to hear from you. Paul.Yeager, Yeager, at iowapbs.org. If you listen to this podcast on a regular basis, send me an email and say, give me a couple of lines about listening, and I'll hit you back with what I'm looking for. But I want to hear from a few of you that take in the MTOM podcast or Market to Market on a regular basis. Kind of want to ask you a few questions, and you can ask me a few things. That's what I'm looking for today. But also this discussion with Keegan Shields as we talk about those tiny little nematodes and the big impact on corn. If you remember, Keegan, you and I met at a dinner a few months, it's been a year now, many months ago. The guy who brought us together to dinner asked me recently, hey, did you ever talk to Keegan? And so I sent him the link, and he was happy that we had that conversation. Since we last talked, what have been the conversations either you've had with Linus or with others about the appearance that you've had on this podcast?
It's been very, very helpful. I get people will come up to me or call me and say, "Oh, I saw you on Market to Market," which is also terrifying, to be out there. I'm not a public personality, not used to that. So, good, but also a little embarrassing.
Was there a point where it was kind of a strange interaction or something that maybe you didn't expect?
Well, I haven't watched the interview. I
Yeah,
feel like one of those actors that can't watch their own movies. I don't know if you watch your own episodes, but
I don't. No, it's hard.
it's very embarrassing. But everybody tells me that you did a great job editing out all of the mistakes I made. So
I don't recall any mistakes. I know I read my words a lot, and then that's how I know, oh, that question was too long. It needs to be shorter. So we'll try that. How about I try that with a simple thing. So let's first, you got the hat, so that's an
Mhm.
upgrade. You got merch now that you're
Yeah,
wearing.
and we got
Precision
heat,
Biocontrol. And what?
and we got heat in our facility
You
compared to
do?
last year. Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
So it's not 0 degrees in here. So that's an improvement already.
You're in Webster City, Iowa, in what, lack of a better term, production facility, main office.
Yep.
Is it still the headquarters ish or the
Yeah.
northern headquarters?
Yep, this is our main production facility. So all of our product is produced here and then shipped out of here. Last spring or last year, I think we used waxworms to produce our nematodes, and I think we killed about 20 million. There were complaints in the industry that people couldn't find waxworms for their ice fishing, and that was probably our fault. So apologies if you're driving by Webster City and you'd like a couple waxworms, we've got a lot. So.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that part of it in a minute. But tell me what it is that you're doing and why you needed the waxworms. You mentioned the nematodes. Give me
Yeah,
an
so
overview of the
we
company again.
we sell a microscopic worm called a nematode. It attacks soil insects and soil insect pests. We use them in agriculture for pest control. And kind of our unique angle is it's a one-time application and should be good for at least a few decades, based on our research. This all came out of my father's lab at Cornell University over his career, and it was developed originally for an invasive pest that's only in, I believe, northern New York. So, pretty small market. He kind of stumbled on that this works really well in corn and organic vegetables and other things. So now we've got ourselves a business, and we're trying to get it out to the masses.
The lab is one thing.
Mhm.
The larger application is another.
Yeah.
When we last talked, you had already kind of done and had clients, but as you've gotten bigger, does the idea still hold in what the vision was and what the research was?
Yeah, it is a big jump to go from the lab, to full production. As my father would say, entomologists are not very good corn growers. They're they're interested in insect damage. I think it's been really cool to see professional farmers, professional corn growers, and what they can do with the technology. We're even starting to see a benefit even when there's not really bad rootworm damage. So I had a guy call me last spring, and he had a 12 bushel difference between his treated and untreated, and treated with our BioControl nematodes, and then the rest of his farm was untreated. So you're talking 1,500 acres compared to 2,000 acres. And he was trying to convince me that it was our product. We went and dug his field. There wasn't, rateable root damage, but the only difference was the biocontrol nematodes. So we think it's probably preventing some early root damage and giving his cornfields a head start. So it's constantly evolving, I would say.
I mentioned Webster City where you're at, and again, center of a lot of corn.
Mhm.
Is it still the center of where your clients are?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of response in the livestock heavy areas, and the guys growing continuous corn. They've got a lot of rootworm pressure. They've really stressed out the traits that they're using to fight rootworm, and so those are kind of the initial clusters. They're also the guys that are well, I guess commodity prices have come up since last year a little bit, but
Well,
yeah,
some of the livestock guys I talked to just in the last couple of days were just like, yeah, cattle's great, but I need them kind of commodity prices higher. So
yeah.
I think they're looking for any type of assistance that you could provide.
Yeah. I think most of our customers are growing corn as a feed through, and so if they don't grow it when they're short, they have to buy it. But they're also seem to be the word seems to be getting out as well. For the first time, we heard, "Oh, I've heard of your product, and I believe it works," which is a big milestone. They're just trying to figure out how to pay for it. So for the first time, we're offering some financing options through John Deere, and that seems to be pretty popular.
What besides cost is apprehension still a hurdle?
We still offer the first 65 acres. We sell at half price, so farmers can try it in their cropping system, see what kind of benefit they get. That's been very effective. Even across the state of Iowa, the agriculture varies so much that I think farmers really need to try it on their farm, see what kind of return they get. Some of the trials that we put out this year, they had really bad rootworm in that field, and then this year or this past spring, they just didn't have any pressure. So it happens, but we kind of play the long game since they're going to be there next year. We'll check back in with them next year and see what kind of benefit they saw.
What was 2025 in some big corn growing areas was a challenging year for pests. We heard about the rust. That's not what you're trying to chase, but does that throw off results or understanding results of your product?
Well, I think everything's always interconnected. We had a field where the guy he was applying our biocontrol nematodes to the field. He ran out of product for the last 20 acres. Um, he got he was told by the applicator who came to spray fungicide that he couldn't get through the last 20 acres. So because he had really bad rootworm damage, he wasn't able to spray for fungicide. He lost even more yield. So there seems to be all these kind of secondary benefits that you don't necessarily think about. The slower harvest speed of harvesting down corn. You're paying a guy to sit at the edge of the field in the tractor trailer and kind of wait to haul your stuff away, and and then you can't get through the corn to spray your fungicide in a year like in 25 where plant disease was so widespread. So, I think it's really having a healthy root system, I think is the foundation to a good crop. And you can really lower your inputs, which I know is top of mind for a lot of guys this year.
We'll recap again how you put the product on. You talk about time of year and long term plays, but again, refresh me on how this thing works at all.
Yeah, so it's a one-time application. You can spray it using your ground spray rig. It's a separate pass, so you don't want to mix it with anything, Roundup or anything. It's just the nematodes that we deliver. And then you get about 70% impact in the first year. Second year, you get 100% impact. It takes that long for the nematodes to multiply and kind of spread throughout the soil profile. And you can also apply it for your viewers that are out in irrigated country. You can put it straight through their center pivot. So we had quite a few acres in the fall get applied through the last bit of irrigation for the year.
And forgive me, I'm always learning about irrigation. Do they do that often with chemical or
Hmm.
some type of assistance? And so that's normal. So see, you fit into the norm of the irrigated acres.
We try to fit in and make it as easy as possible. I know if we needed some special equipment, this would be a lot harder. But
Right, another hurdle for you to climb. Right,
yeah,
that makes
exactly.
sense. You mentioned 70% to 100%, but year over year, the rotation side of this thing. How does that work? You mentioned corn on corn on corn, but what about those that just rotate beans, corn, bean, corn, alfalfa, or whatever?
The nematodes persist just fine across rotation. There's quite a few soil insects in your soybean acres that they can persist on. The original research in New York that we've got 30 years of data of persistence data on, that's for dairies, and they're on a 4-year corn alfalfa rotation. And so, like one of the early studies was, will this persist across when there's corn or alfalfa? So very confident. I went back this past November, down to a field we applied in 2019 in Roswell, New Mexico, and we went back and sampled, and the BioControl nematodes are still there. They're still humming right along at the levels we'd expect. And we went back and tried to calculate what the benefit's been over the last 7 years, and it's between 4 and 500,000. It's a silage field, so silage is a bit more valuable than an acre of grain, but yeah, a huge ROI for, I think the farmer spent $9,000 on nematodes. So we're pretty proud of that big return for the grower.
And so the research, 30 years, but the company is how old?
We're in year 6.
Okay. So again, that's 6, and soon you're really going to be able to use some of those longer term customers as testimonials.
Yep.
And I guess in sales, the phrase, it sells itself.
Yeah, I think our business cases get stronger and stronger. With our earlier customers, the more time goes on, that's probably the most hard to believe thing for farmers when we present, is like, wait, I'm going to put this on my field one time, and I don't have to buy it again from you. Where everything else in ag is kind of annual purchase. So, uh, but I think that's the thing that is such a huge ROI for the farmer.
Well, one of the comments about our previous discussion was, oh, this is just a snake oil product. I mean, this is a flash by night thing. Um, but years of data are in your court.
Yeah, I think if we didn't have the 30 years of university data, if we didn't have I think 12 or 13 peer-reviewed articles on the technology, I probably wouldn't have tried this, because I think most of the viewers know how crowded the biological market is. There's a lot of stuff that seems really good in the lab, and then you roll it out, into the field, and it kind of, did it work? Did it not? But we've got the weight of data. We now have the weight of all the growers that are using it across Iowa and the Midwest. So I think we're finally reaching a point where we've got a farmer who's agreed to kind of be a referral for other farmers that we can give their contact info if there's some skepticism. You know,
Well, yeah.
nothing is stronger than that. Like the farmers in New York aren't that different from the farmers in Iowa and Nebraska, and they watch out for each other.
Well, yeah. I mean, because they're used to the joke is the half-ton white pickup truck showing up in the yard trying to sell them something, and
Sure,
your
sure.
truck is gray, right? Not white.
But
uh,
and two-wheel drive. I barely
oh,
made it
okay.
out of. I was going down to South Texas to deliver 100 acres to an organic farmer down there, and I left at the crest of that blizzard that was in central Iowa just before Christmas, and it was a little touch and go there
Well,
for a
I
while.
think we were talking then. Yeah, that was a heck of a blizzard. You were lucky to be out of town ahead of that. One more thing about the research for you, the long-term aspects of not having the rootworm. I mean, we talk about long-term biological effects in soil. I mean, what has that data said of, golly, you know what? We do need those invasive pests to be a problem because that just messes with the soil. I mean, what's the research been uh, for that part of this discussion?
Yeah, it's always the next question, right? Like, am I releasing something that's not in my soil, and what happens if it gets out of control? Um, when we go out and sample Iowa fields, as an example, about 20% of the fields are going to be positive for these biocontrol nematodes. So they are native across the U.S. We never find a field though that's at the level that we're treating. So we're putting on 50 million to the acre, approximately 40 to 50 million. We never find that in nature, and it seems to be where once you reach the tipping point, now you get pest suppression at an effective level, and a lot of the research was trying to figure that out through Cornell. So these are native across the U.S. They're EPA exempt. We ship them into Canada without any special paperwork, which is a feat on its own. Uh, but we're typically it's the wrong species as well, that's found in Iowa, which kind of makes sense. If rootworm developed here, evolved here, the symbiotic or the biocontrol nematodes that are found in Iowa probably wouldn't control them. So
Yeah, now you're using big words. You're getting credit there on the word find. That's good. Okay, you mentioned organic. What's the role with organic producers and this product?
So these nematodes work really well on wireworm as well, which is a really tough problem in organic. They can't use the neonic seed treatments and some of the insecticides that you can use for wireworm. And wireworm are attracted to any kind of grasses. So a lot of organic growers work really hard on weed control, right? Because they can't use Roundup or any of the other herbicides, um, and they don't have access to GMO seeds. So typically there's a grass in their rotation as well, which is going to pull in click beetles, which is the adult form. And wireworm have a 5-year life cycle, or 3 to 5 years, depending on the species. So you can't just rotate away and they go away and you come back, right? And so the organic growers that are growing onions, sweet potatoes, root crops, they'll get these beautiful organic sweet potato and it'll have bug holes in it, right? And you can't sell that at Whole Foods because you know that's not what they want in the suburbs. So they have to basically throw it out or sell it for a reduced amount. So the research that through Cornell has shown that wireworm damage is reduced about 50 to 80%, which is an acre of sweet potatoes. That's a lot of sweet potatoes. So if you're doubling the amount of sweet potatoes that you can sell into kind of the high end grocers, I mean that's big money for the growers.
Do you find that you're going to have a better path to expansion through the organic market than the conventional market?
I think it's similar. I like to get into these adjacent markets. I'm worried that we're kind of beholden to corn commodity prices right now. If all of our customers are growing corn and corn prices are low, that really puts pressure on, trying to expand and grow sales. So I like to diversify into organic vegetables and in other markets. I think it'll make our business, lower risk for all the team members that are here growing nematodes. And I think too, it helps throughout the year. So a lot of our corn sales for corn rootworm, we're delivering that in the spring and April and May. And then June, July, we can put on nematodes for wireworm throughout the year. So that gives us something to do in June and July, and later in the fall too. So.
Well, and you mentioned garden.
Mhm.
That's also another area where, tell me how that would work.
Yeah, so we're these work great in the home garden. The big pest there is black vine weevil. Any of the root weevils are very sensitive to these types of biocontrol nematodes, and so a lot of times farmer or gardeners will buy plants from the nursery. There's soil insects in the pot. You transfer it into your garden, and then you get this outbreak of a black vine weevil or other soil insects. And so you can put this on in your garden. We're planning to sell about 1,000 square foot worth of biocontrol nematodes, and you'd purchase them through our website, and then we'll ship them to you, overnight them or second day, or around the country.
Sounds like you need to make a phone call to the people who are growing the plants that go to the box stores that I pick up and put into my.
Yeah, I agree. I think if it's anything like corn, we're kind of going to have to work our way up. So you got to build the demand, and then you get the attention of the retailers and the distributors. And um, I think we're looking for some gardening clubs for the spring. We're going to ship free product to them. We need practice with our pick, pack, and ship in our facility, and order processing and all that stuff, because that's new for us. So I can give you a link, and if we get some gardeners to sign up, we'll ship you product, and you fill out a survey for us, tell us how the experience was, and treat your garden.
Sounds like maybe make a next time you drive south home, stop over in Ames, go to Extension and talk to the head of the Master Gardener program,
Yeah,
and just start simple there. I happen to know a Master Gardener who lives at this place, who might be interested
yeah, yeah.
in something like that. But again, something that it hangs in the soil for a long period of time, and can help you more than just 1 year. I'm guessing,
Mhm.
right? Same
Yep.
concept as the cornfield.
Same exact concept. I mean, we're taking something that's been used by farmers for 30 years in New York, and trying to make it available for the home gardener. They're very similar. A lot of home gardeners are familiar with these types of nematodes. You can buy them from other sources. Again, the difference is ours persists. So you apply them, then you don't have to worry about it, right? Which is the type of gardener I would be if I gardened, right? Like, I got so many things to worry about. Just solve this problem for you. I think in the previous interview, I mentioned I put them on the neighbor's rose bushes, that I look out of every day from my office, and they, within 6 months they started blooming, and they're back to being healthy. So
Yeah, you need to get that person to be one that gardeners can call.
yeah, we got
Like
to
you
get her
need
on
that farm.
camera, do a testimonial.
You mentioned the waxworm. Tell me how that waxworm story, how that fits into all of this, because uh, you know, I don't know of a waxworm that goes through a sprayer nozzle, so it sounds like that's what's needed behind you.
Yep. So we use waxworms to produce the nematodes. So the nematodes crawl inside of the soil insects and reproduce inside of them after they kill them, and they produce many more. Out of every waxworm, I think we get between 100 to 200,000 more nematodes. So this past year, we brought 20 million waxworms into the facility, and that produced all of our nematodes. And then the machine behind me, we use to separate all the nematodes from the growing medium and the waxworm leftovers. So that's kind of the first process in producing our final product. And then we've got a storage area where we store them in kind of a clean room in anticipation of delivery.
I don't even know where waxworms come from.
Waxworms are they're in the bait industry. They
Well,
grow
yeah,
them
yeah. I
for
mean, yeah, I
fishing, and
get that, but I don't know what their source is.
Oh, so they're a natural pest of or parasite of bee colonies. So they live inside bee colonies. They pupate into a moth, and then I guess they fly around and find other bee colonies to colonize. And so the larvae tunnel through all the honeycombs and eat the honey and the wax. I'm right at the edge of my entomology knowledge. I'm the business guy, so.
Well, is that another issue and challenge for the bee industry? I mean, because we always hear about they're having challenges, and so I mean, is this a product that you talk about having something else to do in other months? Can you source your own wax worms?
Yeah, I think our future is producing waxworms as well. So we're trying to figure out how to do that, working with some of our suppliers. I think within a couple years, we'll be consuming all of the waxworms in the bait industry, if they'll sell them to us. So, at some point, we got to start growing them ourselves, and
Well, yeah, I
that
mean
makes
that's just
it gets a bit more complicated. Right now, you got to grow the waxworms and then grow the nematodes. So, we're working up to that.
what has staffing been like this year for you?
So we're hiring. We've expanded the manufacturing positions, and also we're looking to hire for our sales team to help us get the word out. I think we've found some really great talent with some of the layoff cycles and the contraction in the ag markets. I think there's a lot of great talent out there. So it's just finding and getting connected with the people is challenging. All the normal LinkedIn and the job posting sites seem to be flooded with a lot of applications that aren't really relevant to what you're asking for. So it can be a challenge to wade through all the volume of resumes that you get.
But you are finding, I mean, when you mention sales, are you finding those people will
Mhm.
be beneficial to areas outside of where you currently physically sit? You need them in
Mhm.
other areas. You mentioned the dairies or livestock areas. Someone that can work over there would be helpful to you, it sounds.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's no replacement for having a physical person go and visit with farmers and host meetings. We're looking to expand into Northwest Illinois, Southern Wisconsin, Western Eastern Nebraska, and the corridor kind of Northwest Iowa up into South Dakota, where there's a lot of livestock and dairies and cattle feeders.
Let's see, we've covered gardening, we've covered organics, we've covered growth. I'm going to go back to one last thing here as we finish, Keegan, and that's the input side of this discussion. Every time I have a conversation with a farmer or a
Mhm.
market analyst, inputs always come up, the input cost.
Yeah, yeah, they're high.
This is, you mentioned it yourself, yes, you're another input, but yours has an asterisk because
Mhm.
it's the 1 to 2 time application.
One time.
One time. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, the you get the pass. But how do you make the case in an environment where the input is as high as it is?
Well, I think one of the reasons we're offering financing is so that farmers don't have to pay for it right away. You can get the benefit this year and then pay for it in the fall when you've made some of the ROI back. So I think that's helpful. And then eliminating some of your other inputs. You put on these biocontrol nematodes, let's say in corn, year two, you can stop using your soil insecticide. And depending on if you're doing liquid or granular, that could be anywhere from $10 to $30 an acre that you're saving. And that's every year for the next, I don't know how far you want to go out, 20 years, 10 years. So that it just builds over time. And I think it's really cool um, how much value we can get back to the farmer. And then in years where, so this year we didn't have many drought conditions, I don't think, in Iowa. We see even bigger yield benefits and yield recovery under drought. When you really need a strong root system, you need corn to go mine for the water and all the inputs you're putting on. Obviously, if your roots are all chewed off, you're going to take quite a bit of yield hit, right? So you're looking at. We even had a grower out in irrigated country apply for a grant for reduced water usage. Because the biocontrol nematodes are protecting the roots. He's having to use less water in his irrigation, and I believe they help pay for part of the biocontrol nematodes. So. we try and give the farmer the parameters and then get out of their way, because they're going to take it to the next level.
And once you tell that story, somebody else might get that idea. And
There might be a
especially
lot of applications coming in.
yeah. But I mean, also again, the drought, I mean, weather is a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
A wet, a mixed, dry, that happens. Yep. You're good. You're bound to hit one. I mean, yeah, we hit dry at the end of the growing season in Iowa and Illinois. I mean, it had various times and things like that. When you mentioned 2025, do you put the word success behind it yet?
Yeah. I think it was a great year. We sold 25,000 acres. We basically sold out of product, and we should have, with our improvements, 30,000 acres available for this spring. So trying to double every year. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, I think overall a success. We got some cool drone shots from some tests we did this year or last year in Iowa, which I can send you. You could see the application line of where there were nematodes and where there weren't, based on down corn, and the coolest part, that those nematodes were applied in 2024, so they were applied the year before. There was no rootworm pressure, and then we saw a lot of rootworm pressure this year in that field, and it was very compelling. I made a poster out of it. So,
well, it's able to push back, is what you're saying. Yeah. Well, it sounds like I better let you get back to work, because there's people behind you that are like, seriously, is he done yet talking to Paul?
Yeah. The team's ready to go. They don't want to be here late. So
thanks, Keegan. Great to see you. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
My thanks, as always, to the production crew at Iowa PBS, Sean Ingracia, Reed Denker, Kevin Rivers, Neil Kyer, Julie Knutson, and David Feingold. They make this possible each and every week through their technical work. David Miller is the executive producer of Market to Market. We will see you next time. Thank you for watching, listening, or reading the MTOM podcast.